And Nate Diaz, people are trying to put him into the, like we just said last week, do not rely on this man for any sort of plans towards any grander vision that the UFC is working towards, because he will continually undermine them and make poor decisions as to where he should belong.
Dude, it's
He,
perfect. Not
he's
only
doing,
did your theory prove, mine also totally proves true of him angling to get a Connor lightweight title fight. Connor loses. He realizes, oh well, I'm not getting the Connor title fight. I'm not cutting down to 55 then. I'm staying at welterweight. Why would I cut down if I can't fight Connor for the belt? You all just come to me instead. Is exactly what we knew was gonna happen.
yeah, it's yeah, man. You just can't. As much as I love the Diaz brothers and their persona and what they bring to the sport as far as spectacle and as characters that are totally unique. There's no one else like them. Unfortunately, the cost of that is that they don't care the same way the other fighters care. They really don't. And that's why, yeah, you cannot make plans with them in mind when it comes to the UFC title picture. Or really, you can't make plans with them beyond a single fight. If you are
No, that's
fortunate
it.
enough to get them to sign on the dotted line, just imagine that's the last bout you're going to see them every time they walk out,
Yeah.
which is a shame because he and his brother, super talented, um, very skilled, but don't seem to want to. They just don't want to grind anymore. They really don't seem like they want to grind anymore as far as professionally. Like if you look at their social media, they are constantly working and they're constantly going as far as training and then their strength, their triathlon stuff. But yeah, they don't seem like they really want to jump through the hoops of fighting anymore. So,
To
the,
me,
and the,
though,
and yeah, go ahead.
this is starting to be a problem. I think that maybe Connor kind of just exposed where like they're getting old. They've been young and they've been in positions where they could just take 2 or 3 or 4 years off and just not do anything and then come back for one massive payday fight. But it's like, man, they're in their mid 30s at this point, or however old they are. They're old to the point where it's like you cannot keep jumping in every couple of years. You're gonna get messed up real bad one of these times. Uh, yeah, it's like I don't it's not in in their interest the longer they're out. I don't think Nick ever comes back.
No, he
But
shouldn't. He should not ever come back.
no, he's
He's
been away
already
way
getting
too long.
he was already getting lapped when he left. I mean, like
Like eight
I
years
said,
ago.
yeah, man. He was already when you look at it skill for skill, they are very much um, of their era. Nate Diaz is of his era. He was successful against fighters who fight like him, a guy who was young and relevant in 2009 to 2012. That really great boxing, kick defense, and jiu-jitsu. They didn't have great wrestling because they didn't care if they got taken down. The modern day lightweight has it all. They can kick, they can punch, they can wrestle, they can grapple. They're against the cage type of work is great. They all just spent the last, however many years, whether Khabib had the belt or didn't, under the terrifying range of the Dagestani dominator, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who lifted all the boats when it came to wrestling. Like lightweight wrestling, it is now a prerequisite to be a top in class lightweight is that you can grapple, and especially those grappling positions against the fence when you're down where Khabib would typically get those handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like, these are all positions that the Diazes just are not equipped to deal with. Outside of the jiu-jitsu realm, when it comes to the wrestling, that's been a hole for the Diazes for the entirety of their careers. And now every single lightweight is prepared for that. And every single lightweight, um, the game just moves too fast, man. It just does. It evolves too fast.
Yes, I agree. And so, and looking at this though, the problem is, as we stand right now, the majority of all the biggest fights that Nate could get are lightweight fights. Um,
Yep.
is like you look at, okay, if he's going to be at 170, obviously he's going to come back for some big blockbuster fight. He has the rematch with Masvidal. That's not in the cards right now, I don't think.
No.
Um, is there is there any other big fights other than him convincing a lightweight to come up and fight him at 170? Because I think he could be like, "Yo, Dustin, come up and fight me at welterweight." And Dustin be like, "All right, yeah, sure." Now,
No.
am I advising
No.
that? I am absolutely not advising that.
No. I mean,
But
this is, yeah,
yeah,
as much as Dustin would love that payday, I think the more that we get out from the Connor fight, uh, Poirier, and rightfully so, is focused on that belt. The money.
oh man, that
What's that?
I don't know about that. That it's been weird that Dustin did that interview run the other day, and he was like, I'm not focused on the belt now. I'm focused on getting that third Connor fight, the big third Connor fight. And he was like, I'm just going to sit back and you can let Oliveira and Michael Chandler fight for the belt. He kind of turned a corner this week, which is weird.
Which interview was that?
All of them. He went on a run this week, and he was like, Oliveira and Michael Chandler can go fight for the belt. I want to chill and take some time off, and I want the third Connor fight. And I get it. He's angling for his. He's going with the strike while the iron is hot method, right? Because you roll straight into that third Connor fight. It'll be huge. You can probably do over 3 million pay-per-view buys, right?
Oh, it will be a massive pay-per-view.
It'll be huge. They can sell it. It'll be massive. And then Dustin probably feels very confidently going into that. And then in his mind thinks, right, after this, then I'll get the belt. But yeah, it's a mess right now. And you don't have a
Yeah.
slide about the Oliveira and Chandler thing, right? Because we can just talk about that right now.
Actually, we'll see about that.
Okay, then
We'll
never
see
mind.
about that.
Ugh,
James Vick retires from MMA.
yeah.
For those of you who are not aware, James Vick was a fighter in the lightweight division who, for a time, was in the top 10 and was a formidable dude. He went on a pretty bad skid, almost exclusively stoppages, right?
Yep.
And he lost at a regional show, ex MMA, and he announced his retirement. So, I mean, again, it's not something that is, quite from an objective standpoint, right? He's not a Hall of Famer. He will go down as a guy. He'll go down as a dude who fought. But I just thought, yeah, I just wanted to kind of just spotlight it for a second,
Yeah.
because win, lose, or draw, his fights were always good.
And this is important. We don't always get to see these like the brutaler side of how some of these guys go out, because most guys in his position, right? You go on a nice little run in the UFC, you work your way up, and then you hit a wall and you go on a little bit of a skid. You get cut from the UFC, and then you generally just fade away and you're never heard from again. But like, I mean, God, man, he was on a really bad, he got knocked out very badly multiple times in a row. Then he goes to the regional scene, his very first fight on the regional scene, gets his whole face just broken. I mean, and it's like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And it's like, God, it's a brutal. It can all go wrong in an instant. Like you can be on a roll, you can be a top 10 guy in the world, and you can one thing can go wrong in one fight, and that's the end for you, and you never come back from it, and you could it's
Yeah.
brutal like that.
Yeah, and I think that's that's why success in MMA is so rare, because it takes a mix of all the things to be successful. Like really like hard work, determination, uh skill, um luck, a lot of luck. Um yeah, man. And yeah, like you said, like this is a guy who fought in the UFC, had some really fun fights. He's on more than a few of the current top lightweights highlight reels. And yeah, he steps away. I think he mentioned in his retirement that he felt his entire career he was playing catch up, because he never wrestled, he never did martial arts. He started in his 20s
Mhm.
and made it to be a top 10 lightweight in the world, which is impressive in its own right. I believe he ends with a record of 13-6. Um, and five of those six are just his last five fights. And yeah, this is one of the more brutal endings to an MMA career, because normally the regional part of a UFC vet's career is normally they win a few, or they don't fight for a while after they fight in the UFC, they get cut. Then they come back maybe once or twice, win those, maybe drop a decision or something, and then there's like, all right, that was it. Um, but yeah, I mean that's it. I mean nothing monumental, but James Vick, an all action guy, and yeah, wish him the best. Wish him the best, really. Here's one that I don't have a ton to say about. Pretty disappointed actually. Dominick Reyes is injured, out of fight against Prochazka, and they're going to reschedule it. So
Yeah, that's a bummer.
yeah, it's a bummer. Floyd Mayweather, Logan Paul postponed, and I believe we saw not too long, because I don't want to talk about this one too long anyway. But what there was that report that came out last week or the week before, that there was uh, a weird, how did they word it? An odd lack of interest.
Yes, odd lack of interest is the word.
Yeah, of course there's an odd lack of interest. This is like, this was Mayweather being like, how far can I take this to not actually fight like real guys?
Yeah,
How far can I take? Can I fight a dude who like literally isn't even a combat sports athlete in a professional bout? Hmm. I
yeah.
don't know.
Uh,
The statement from Paul. We're figuring it out. I mean, it was 18 days away. By the way, we
yeah,
were less than 20 days out
yeah,
from this fight. We're figuring it out now. When you're dealing with someone like Floyd Mayweather, who is the most desired, high-paid fighter on the planet, and he operates at a certain caliber, and the people around him want to make sure their talent, their fighter is performing at a certain level. There are a lot of hoops to jump through. There are a lot of people involved. You've only got one shot at it, so you need to get it absolutely 1000% right. And we're just making sure we're doing that. But yeah, I'm still going to beat the shit out of Floyd Mayweather, or maybe he's going to beat the shit out of me. Point is, it's still going to happen. Are those just a quick on this? Are those wishful words, or you think it still happens?
I mean, they're still going through with his brother fighting Ben Askren, which to me is equally as strange because that was announced after it was announced
Yeah.
that this was postponed. I've been looking at the numbers online. Ben Askren is getting more views on his videos talking about the fight than Paul is. And I'm like, I don't think there's that much interest for that fight either. I think they're really scraping the barrel to try to be like, how much will you got? I'm very interested in how much legitimately a pay-per-view would sell that is main evented by the brother versus Ben Askren, or this
Well,
one versus Mayweather. I don't think it would do like. You think it'd break 1 million?
no.
I don't either.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? We are not, okay,
That's it. They're selling to the
I am
wrong
not the
audience.
target audience.
Or
I'm not
not.
the target audience for either of these. They just don't, they're not interesting. They are a circus show. They are not sport. They are not sport. They're doing a sport, but it is not sport.
Yeah.
We don't learn anything from these fights. We learn nothing from these fights. We're not learning about the evolution of when Jake Paul takes on Ben Askren. Even if he starches Ben Askren, what did we learn? What did we like? What do we come away from any result of that fight? What do we do with that? Because it's
Nothing. It's
not like,
worthless. Worthless.
yeah, it's not sport, and it doesn't interest me. It doesn't interest me. Um, obviously I like MMA. People hit each other in the head in MMA, but at the end of it, we come out learning some things about the wider landscape of fighting. These are not that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that in the end, these two do not fight Mayweather and Logan.
That's safe.
That is my official vote. And if you guys disagree or agree, comment down below. Let us know. We want to know what you think about this situation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely let us know down below if you think they'll fight. Do you think they'll fight? Do you think they won't fight? Do you think that you know would you ever that I am way more interested. I would be way more interested to see one of the Paul brothers get built in Bellator than do any of this shit.
Of course,
Really.
but they
I
don't
mean,
actually do MMA.
well, that's the thing is that's what honestly did you I did watch Helwani's uh interview with
I
the
watched
Paul
them both.
brothers,
Yep, I watched them both.
and he seemed to get actually pretty frustrated with them.
Yeah,
Just the way, because he's just being so disrespectful and also talking out of both sides of his mouth. Like, oh, Ben Askren, Helwani asked him straight up, like, did you pick him because he's not a striker? Like, is that why you picked him? Is because his his route to victory in MMA was a thing you're not even allowed to do.
of
And
course.
then yeah, of course, it's like he danced around answering that, but it's super obvious to anyone who
It's the MMA audience.
knows
We're not
anything.
buying this. The MMA audience is not into this at all.
No, it's not. I'm not. I would love to see if you could stop Ben Askren's takedown
You got
because
the
apparently you're some like D1 college wrestler.
mm,
That would be interesting. I would be down to watch like I for this type of stuff, I would really be down to see some shoot boxing.
yeah, sure.
That would be pretty cool, but you'd have to do it in Japan or whatever, where there's no you know no commissions or whatnot. And then in that case, we get Ben Askren with abs.
Yeah, nice.
Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida in the works. I think that's a pretty good fight. I like that fight.
Yep.
They tend to use Almeida in these spots.
Yes, he has some kind of distant name value. At one point in time, he did main event cards for the UFC many years ago, if anyone remembers. But he
Yeah.
is also at this point in his career a good style matchup to make Sean O'Malley look good again. But you never know. He can still turn around to be Thomas Almeida can be dangerous from time
I
to time.
mean, Thomas Almeida hadn't fought for a really long time, right? He had a long, long layoff.
That is correct, but I did believe he had had a rough go of it lately. He's been
Yes, yeah, he did, but I believe he won. Did he win his comeback?
I don't remember. Let us
I
know in
have
the
to look
comments
that up.
below.
Yeah, let us know below. Let us know. I'm gonna take a real strong stance here. Go Stephen A style on your ass. He did come back and he looked fantastic.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Stephen A's he knows, man.
Nice.
Charles Oliveira turned down non-title fight against Michael Chandler at UFC 258. And as a side note, right before we talk about this, a thing I forgot to include, I forgot to put here. UFC 258 gets a late added bout between dude. The UFC has really been dropping these veteran fights lately, and I'm super into them. Jim Miller versus Bobby King Green.
Yeah, boy. That is
Dude,
nice.
dude, that fight is gonna be so good.
Yeah.
Cannot wait.
Yeah.
Oh, they just, man, man. I'm really, I don't even know who to pull for in that fight. To be honest,
Mm,
I love both men for totally different reasons.
agreed.
But yeah, let's get back to this. Charles Oliveira turned down non-title fight against Michael Chandler at UFC 258. We spoke about this a little bit before the show, but we canned it to save it for right now. What do you let me know what you were gonna say, because I think we agree.
Well, obviously, he did the absolute correct thing by turning down the fight. I will explain by laying out the context of how this is laid out here. So, UFC 258 takes place in a week and a half from as we sit and record this episode right now. It is the weekend following the weekend of Overeem versus Volkov. That pay-per-view happens to be incredibly weak. That pay-per-view was headlined by a title fight of Usman versus Burns. That was about all it had. It had a co-main event of a rematch between Chris Weidman and Uriah Hall. 2 weeks out from this pay-per-view, it loses its co-main event. The UFC looks at it and is like, man, that pay-per-view is weak as hell. We need a co-main event. There's no fight on the card that's decent enough to promote to a co-main event. They're like, we need to get something on here. There's a big co-main event so we can sell this pay-per-view. They had a similar situation last year in Chicago, and that one had two title fights on it. And last second, with a couple weeks, they threw together Cerrone versus Tony Ferguson to try to save that card and sell some more pay-per-views. So this time they tried to do the same thing. I noticed recently on Michael Chandler's Instagram, he had posted, he was like, UFC just called me, got off the phone with Dana White, boom, it's done. I'm going to be stepping in, let's go. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So he reveals to Ariel, not only did he agree to fight, he hopped on a plane and flew all the way to Florida, ready to do a training camp on uh, 13 days notice to fight Charles Oliveira, and then found out Oliveira turned it down, and so he flew back home. Uh, Charles Oliveira did the absolute right thing to turn this fight down because it's ridiculous. These are two guys. Okay, there are three people that have legitimate claims to be fighting for a lightweight title right now. There is Dustin Poirier, and then there's these two guys, Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. You do
Yeah,
not take two of the guys that should be fighting for a belt and go, hey, you two, fight in a 3-round non-title fight on 13 days notice, and you both need to make 155. Like, how
well,
disrespectful.
you know what was impressive about Chandler too? Because according to him, we don't know if it's necessarily true because he was also trying to be coy, but I also don't think that he would say this if it wasn't true because it sounds you know, macho chest beady kind of deal. But The UFC just called him and asked him if he would fight at UFC 258.
Yeah.
Not Oliveira specifically.
No,
Just
didn't give him an opponent, just said a fight against a top lightweight. And just by process of elimination, he narrowed it down to either Oliveira or Gaethje.
so and he kind of spelled it out in his interview that like and accurately so. And he seems to be one of the few dudes in the UFC right now that like totally gets this. He's just like, we are not getting any younger and we can't do this forever. I can't perform at this level for the rest of my life. I need to get in as many fights as I can in order to get where I want to be
Yeah,
in the
also,
amount
I
of
can't
time I have
remember who
left.
it was, but another fighter had mentioned that when you do a full fight camp and then you have a fight and it ends rather quickly, if you can get another fight shortly afterwards, you can get two for the price of one fight camp. And so
Yeah.
you don't have to suffer through two fight camps. You get to basically reuse the first fight camp to get two full fights out of it. And that was another thing he was trying to do, because he had mentioned that basically all last year he was in camp and only got to fight just this one time.
Yeah.
But regardless,
And
they
yeah.
should not have taken this fight. They
No,
are
of
in
course not.
they are in no obligation to save a sinking pay-per-view. No, both of them did the right thing, or Oliveira did the right thing in being like, no, we're gonna act. I'm gonna be. All these people need to be fighting in 5-round main events for belts.
Well, I mean, at the very least, like, yeah, at the very least, like, the UFC should respect them enough to not make them fight on to like call Michael Chandler and be like, "Hey, y- you're you're just a dog, right? You'll fight anything, right? You're not like a professional athlete that
Right.
like has a whole team that formulates a plan
Yeah.
around a particular no, you're just a dog, right? You just fight anybody. It's just it's so disrespectful
Yeah.
to what the athletes actually do in order to fight. It's like the corporate structure of the UFC is a casual. Like that is what they're just like, you need to operate how we think you operate. And we saw it, the UFC does not like this. Specifically, Dana White does not like when the fighters stand up for themselves and make it clear that like, no, I'm like a top tier athlete and I have to do certain things to be successful at this sport that's really hard. And I can't just sign on the dotted line and just like leave the top blank
Yeah.
and still be successful. It was the John Jones Dan Henderson thing when he dropped out and Chael Sonnen stepped in and Jones was just like, "No, of course I won't. It's a completely different fighter. Why would I agree? We work on things specific to the fighter. It's not because I'm afraid to fight Chael Sonnen, it's because I haven't built my camp, my professional camp for a world championship fight around Chael Sonnen."
Yeah.
I believe the same thing happened with Demetrius Johnson. I can't remember who it was, but they wanted him to take a fight on really short notice, and I believe he actually did use the words disrespectful. That the UFC wanting him to put his title on the line on such short notice was and that's what it is. It's disrespectful for what athletes like. Yeah, a fighter on the regional circuit. Bisping talks about it all the time on Contender Series. He's just like, people at these levels, like, you don't have a camp on the regional scene. You
Yeah.
take fights when you get fights. You just say yes all the time so you can get noticed. You're in the top, forget the top 3, top 4. If you're in the top 15 in the world, you should not just be fighting to fight.
Mhm.
That's done. You
Yeah.
did that. Um, so yeah, of course they shouldn't have fought at 258 because it's ultimately not a. Because yeah, while it is one, ultimately it comes down to two men. It's also um the chess behind the preparation is also involved in the result of the fight. What works? What works as far as preparation for this guy or that guy? Yeah, man, you're right. You're totally right. Charles Oliveira was totally justified in fighting Michael Chandler, but on the other side of the coin, Michael Chandler has his reasons. He needs to get in there, and no one wants to fight him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also for good reason. I mean,
Yes, for good reason.
He's a scary, unheralded guy, is what he is. And he's not Russian, but he might as well be.
Yeah.
It's a bad week for women in combat sports. Casey Kenney having some locker room talk with Sean O'Malley about which women fighters he would bang. Megan Anderson, apologies, gets brought up, and I don't have his exact statement here, but Casey's roundabout way, ew, gross, and that's Anderson responds, and then the MMA community, including John Anik, went in on him.
Yeah.
Even. John Anik listen, when John Anik goes in on your ass, you fucked up. And Kenney apologized, but don't you think it's interesting that the corporate structure of the UFC did nothing?
Yes and no. At this point,
I mean, it's predictable.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, like, yeah, it's
I have three things about this.
Okay, go ahead.
That were the funniest instances. Okay, one is this fucking guy that does the podcast with Sean O'Malley set this boy up for absolute failure.
He did.
What was Casey Kennedy? So what was he supposed to say? He's on a podcast where they know this podcast is going to go out to thousands of people, to the MMA community. They're just like, yo, dog, you trying to bang that chick that you work with? And he's just like, well, no. And then it's like, okay, obviously, what an idiot. Who says no? But then it's like you're trying to, like, in a weird way, like, you probably think that sounds better, being like, no, it's better than being like, yeah, bang the fuck out of this chick. It's like, no, that's bad. Also, there's no winning. The second thing was, they go over all this while Sean O'Malley is holding his daughter and discussing the fact that he claims he could never become addicted to heroin because he would just not get addicted. He's so much stronger than addiction that he just wouldn't do it. And he's like holding his infant daughter in his arms. It's a mess. The whole thing to me is just a hilarious MMA dumpster fire mess. I mean, Sean O'Malley's turning out to be like a little, like,
that
platinum Mike Perry almost. God.
Yeah. There's some things that God, it's just so peak MMA. It is just the whole thing. It's the whole thing. The fact that Casey Kenney didn't just say, like, come on, man, I'm not gonna. Come on.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Like, it's so simple. It's so simple. Like, come on, dude. Like, the cameras and microphones weren't even hidden. Like, he knew he was being. He was there. Not only did he know he was being recorded, he was there to be recorded.
Yeah.
He knew. So then, and then it's just peak MMA, like, my willpower type. Like, just, dude, come on.
I'm stronger than the heroin coursing through my veins.
Dude, it's oh God. It's just like having flashbacks and just like, dude, fucking Gus Johnson in the background. These things sometimes happen in MMA. Like, just the specter of bad decisions just rears its head in MMA, man.
Jesus Christ.
just numb flashbacks to Platinum Perry sleeping an old man outside a bar and grill. Like, dude, these athletes outside the cage sometimes are just like, oh God, oh God.
Yeah.
It's like, people people have brought this story, the Casey Kenney story, up to me, and these are like casuals. Like they're like, what do you think about this? You've told me before this is the only sport you like. What about this sport do you enjoy? The misogyny, the thinly veiled racism from top welterweight contenders, or just the insane willpower that these athletes possess that they just will themselves to not get addicted to heroin. I don't know, man. I don't know. This is one I brought up because this is actually this is actually do you think the best thing for Frankie Edgar, right? He hasn't hit a slope, right?
Mhm.
But when you hear a statement like this, um, is the best case scenario that when he does start to slope, he just gets shut off?
Here's the thing, right? When I'm looking at Frankie Edgar, I'm looking at there's certain guys in this game that peak, and it may depend on when they come in and when they start, right? But they peak really late in their careers, or for whatever reason they're able to extend their peak very late into their career. I very much compare Frankie Edgar to a DC type, where DC leaves the sport on a run of fighting for the belt. DC left having contended for belts because he was still fighting at the very highest elitist level. This is just basically what I'm seeing from Frankie Edgar. I'm looking at, like, how old is he at this point? Late 30s, right? Late 30s. Been in the
Uh,
UFC since
Come on, Brad,
2007.
take a strong Stephen A stance. How old is he?
I will tell you for a fact that he debuted in the UFC in 2007. I know that for a fact. So uh,
He was on MTV True Life.
the guy's got to be 38, 39. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I, he knows that now this is his second drop in weight class. He knows this is his final run, right? I'm thinking if at some point he gets derailed badly on a path to the bantamweight title and he is not able to fight for it, or he fights for it and doesn't get it, that will be the end of Frankie Edgar. But I still think there is a path for him to still get there. Like it's still very much there. He hasn't hit a wall yet.
Yeah.
But
I think the story of Edgar is really just a dude who, well, again, like many stories in MMA, just perseverance. But I think one of the reasons he's been able to extend, because I would say that he's not peak, but he's about as good as he ever was on any given night. I mean, like his run at lightweight, is well, it's legendary. And the fact of the matter is, by modern standards, he fought two weight classes up that entire time.
yeah,
So as soon as the skill, because he was always skillfully, technically better, which made the size disadvantage a little bit less significant. But every time that skill advantage has started to close out, he's dropped a weight class, which kind of evens it out again
yeah,
because the size advantage isn't there anymore. So now featherweights, every weight class throughout the sport has gotten bigger
oh yeah,
physically, right? So now he's featherweight. You have Max Holloway running around. He's fucking 7 feet tall by comparison. And so he drops again. So now, finally, for the first time, we have Edgar facing dudes his relative size and strength. And yeah, I think that's exactly kind of the formula he's used to drop weight. Although, really, if you take a look at his career, he probably should have dropped to 35 after Aldo. The
Oh, yeah.
second the
The second
second
time, yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
of course he should have.
Um, you're
But
right. And last thing I'll say on this, more so to your point that you just proved in terms of him steadily staying above the curve with this dropping weight classes. Look at where he's at, and look at the guys that he had his all of his legendary lightweight fights against are at. Look at where BJ Penn is just desolate in the ground, or Gray Maynard, or Ben Henderson over in Bellator just getting knocked out. I mean, these guys that he contended with are like down bad right now. All of them are not they haven't had great runs at where they are now and they're at their point in their careers. Frankie Edgar has dropped 2 weight classes and is in contention for another belt. Um, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild that Frankie Edgar has stayed this relevant. And his skill set has adapted enough when it needs to. He hasn't reinvented himself, but he
no.
doubles down on what he does well enough that people can't deal with it sometimes unless you have super elite skills.
Yeah, and he's maintained a speed advantage too,
Oh yeah,
which is really weird because it's usually the first thing to go. You don't see a lot of old lower weight class guys.
yeah,
Really, hardly ever. I mean, a lower weight because the division relies so much on speed and explosiveness. Um, Mostly speed and conditioning, the two
yeah.
things that an older guy is going to lose. Um, yeah, I think it's just a testament to how special Edgar is, and I would argue that he's another guy that modern fans just really don't. They just don't realize it, man. They just don't understand.
Yeah,
Um, they're like, why is this 40-year-old fighting top bantamweight contenders? Like, because he's been here
yeah.
and he's been in the top he's been in the top 10 of every division he's fought in
Top
since
5,
the top 5 for what? So he made his debut, what'd you say, in
7.
2007?
Yeah,
Let's say where he really came on the map for me, like big time, was when he just utterly destroyed Sean Shirk at UFC. What card was that? 98? 99?
somewhere
It
around
was
there. Yeah,
somewhere it was somewhere in like the 98 to 101s, somewhere in there. And yeah, from that point on. So like yeah, 2009
yeah.
to now, he's been in the top 5 of
Same.
every weight class.
Over a
That's
decade.
so great that he's spent over a decade in the top 5, whichever
3
weight.
different weight classes. Anywhere he goes, it's crazy.
Nuts. And this is the last slide actually. Barboza. He is very close to fighting out his contract. He's one fight away. Um,
Yeah, Barboza has been
so
talking about this for a year. He has clearly been unhappy at this point, and where he's at in the UFC. I don't know why the UFC doesn't either just release him or just book him against whoever, just like they did with Anthony Pettis, because it's very clear that if they do book him for one more fight, he's not staying. They have had a bad relationship over the past like year, 2 years. So yeah, at the time, I think it's the end of Edson Barbosa's run in the UFC for sure.
hey man, actually I lied. There's one more slide or two more slides. A place where he could potentially go.
Mm, okay.
Um, and yeah, I would love to see him fight out his contract. It would be I'm all about spreading the talent, not too much because we want to see the top dudes fight top dudes, but for like names um that could potentially just bring increased viewership to some of these lower like the lower tier organizations in terms of like budget, not talent, but because I mean, let's be honest, the UFC has the biggest platform by far, And I think when you get to the top 10 of every division, there's like a clear gap between them and most guys outside of the UFC. But I really honestly would love to see like a roster reduction,
Mm,
but it's just never going to happen. You have too many fights to fill. Um, so yeah, the final slide, and we don't have a ton really to say about this, but PFL, the organization everyone thought was just dead in the water due to COVID, they're back. So they have not gone bankrupt. There were rumors that they had gone bankrupt, but there are a few names on here that people can recognize um, in the lightweight division more than anything. And Brad, I would recommend if you have never watched Natan Schultz fight, he's good. He's very
I
good.
have not. I have not ever heard of him before.
He is a multi-time champion at PFL, and he is really, really good. Honestly, I'm kind of bummed. I was just speaking about getting the talent spread out, but I'm bummed he has not made the leap yet.
Mm,
Um, then we got Pettis in there. Johnny Case is in there. Marcin Held is in there. Clay Collard. Uh, Aubin Mercier is in there.
It honestly
Got
still
some
blows my mind that he washed out of the UFC already. It seems like way too soon for him.
Mercier.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was he had a couple losses straight, or maybe just one, because
not
I remember.
enough for him to be cut. I was,
Right, yeah,
no,
I think he may have been a dude who fought his way out.
yeah,
To be honest, because he does train with McDonald
yeah,
at TriStar,
yeah.
and you do see that occasionally at other camps where a big name guy will leave the UFC, get with another organization, tell all their teammates, "Hey, forget
Make a
all
deal
that.
over here. Yeah,
These people are willing to pay for talent, for top level name value talent. So forget about that. You can do that later. Stack up that resume, stack up the bread, and then maybe in a little bit you can go on back. But yeah, the lightweight division is looking to be good because then I'm seeing a couple. We say it all the time, but we're seeing a couple unheralded Russian-esque names here that probably are not going to be too fun to face down. And then in the featherweight, we have Brennan Loughnane, Lance the Party Palmer, who is also pretty good. He's an alpha male guy.
yeah.
Bubba Jenkins is back in the spotlight. Um, and then the rest of these guys, I would have to watch some footage on them. But yeah, um, hmm, Jason Suarez. Hmm.
Mm.
Listen, I don't want to go out like Casey Kenney, so I guess I'll end it there. Um, I'll yeah, Brad, do you have anything else to say to the people?
No. Thanks for sticking in here for this extended, probably hour and a half episode. If you
Yeah,
have anything
yeah,
you want to add to it, comment below. Let us know. You can follow us on our Instagram.
yeah. Let us know what strong takes we took that were just dead wrong.
Oh yes,
You know?
argue with us. Get combative in that comment section, people. All right, we're all
Oh,
about it.
geez,
We will
listen,
respond.
that's not the kind of community I'm trying to,
All
give
right,
me some.
play nice down there. Don't be rude to each
Give
other.
me some. All I'm asking for is some fact-based arguments, right?
Hey, if you can give us a fact-based, cited argument in the comments, we'll give you a shout out on the show. How about that? Give you an incentive.
How about that?